So thank you very much. This is the book that one of the books anyway, that one I recommend to people. Let's see. Okay, so I get to do it this way. Yeah, I think I'll try this until I can't read it any longer. Thrilled that you're all here. I appreciate your presence, really, enormously, because I didn't do all this work just to talk to myself, right? Yeah. So, our Kinsey legacy, we are into 70 years of slandering the American public. We are into 70 years of slandering men, women, and children. Bringing America back to life. I'm thrilled to be here. Mary McAllister, my colleague, is right there. She'll answer all your legal questions. After we're through, absolutely. So we're going to talk very quickly about our history, the current conditions, and our future. Yeah? I want you to understand that Case Western Reserve in Cleveland, Ohio, is where my journey in this field began. In 1968, I was doing my PhD there. I had been a happy woman. I was working for Captain Kangaroo, NBC, CBS, doing songs, yeah? And that I was thrust into the area of pornography, which I won't go into a great deal here today, but enough. I was thrust into that when I went back to Case Western Reserve University and was in a course that in which the students in that course were using pornography, and then that was the beginning of my queries into what the blazes is going on. What are we teaching our PhDs, our future PhDs, our master's students, and so forth? And I began to learn history. Kinsey was to sexuality what Freud was to psychiatry, what Madame Curie was to radiation, what Einstein was to physics. Wow, yeah? We've based a whole generation of education on sexologists in the church, in our schools, and so forth. That part I added. On Kinsey, and Kinsey was a dirty old man, quote unquote. Who said that? Do you see it? Phil Donahue. And then he said, no, but he wasn't. So you'll see a little clip of that program if I get to do it today. Now, who is Dr. Alfred Kinsey? How many here have heard of Kinsey? All the old people, yeah. Yeah. But what you don't understand is whether you've heard of Kinsey or not, your lives have been changed. One of the reasons that you're here, I would argue, is thanks to Dr. Kinsey and the Rockefeller Foundation that funded this unheard of fellow from nowhere, and the mass media blitz that covered the nation from one end to the other and caused him to become what was called the father of what? The sexual revolution. What does that mean? Well, he was supposed to be a respectable, quiet, academic. Well, indeed, what was he really? A mass child sexual abuser. Yeah? Oh, yeah, it's all documented. Get my book so that you can say these things with confidence. That's all documented. A bi-homosexual, a sadomasochistic addict, all right? This was the guy who led us in the whole area of human sexuality, as Donahue pointed out, correct? He is the guy who led that transition into transgender. We'll talk about that in a minute. And a pornography addict, of course. So he made pornography in his attic, in his house, and at Indiana University in the basement. No, in his offices, soundproofed offices. We'll talk about that quickly. And he died of STDs and violent masturbation. And of course, he was a eugenicist. He wanted to sterilize 10% of the population. The select 10%, you all would have, been part of that 10%. So would I. Okay? That is who he was. And what happened? She said to me when I was at Case Western Reserve, a social worker, I was taking a course in psychology, and she said to me, this young, lovely very pleasant-looking young woman, said to me, "Children are sexual from birth. We are all sexual beings." Well, what I didn't understand, and I said, "What? What? Children are sexual from birth? What are you talking about," right? That was at Case Western Reserve in one of the courses that I was taking. So that changed my life. Okay, and here is Dr. Kinsey lecturing at Berkeley. In 1948, he was teaching at that time, LGB. There were no T's and Q's and R's and S's and so on. He was, yeah. So, let's go back for a second. Yeah, right. Give me a girl at an impressionable age, and she'll be mine for life. Well, we know that. That's clear. And that's Kinsey lecturing to these folks. Not only that, he lectured in Portugal and Canada, Europe, UK. Kinsey was lecturing university students all across the world. Now, these are students and professors listening to the wise and noble Alfred Kinsey in Copenhagen. He lectured, he informed, he helped to indoctrinate educators, medical doctors, judges, lawyers, psychologists, legislators, global sex leaders. If I had another 2 hours, I could tell you about the conference in Wales that I attended with the global sex leaders, where I met the origin of the academic pedophile lobby in Wales, yeah? So there he is in Frankfurt, Germany, and here he is lecturing to massive numbers consistently, hospitals all over the country. They were a group of gynecologists. Well, what did Kinsey say that he found out about sex? Well, my goodness, about heterosexual and homosexual experience. This is what's called the Kinsey scale. How many of you ever seen the Kinsey scale? Yeah, there are a few of you. Come on, Dr. Diggs here. I'm giving a shout out to Dr. John Diggs, one of my old friends who I've worked with for years, and I'm so thrilled that he came today. Yeah, everybody? Yeah, thank you. Dr. John Diggs. Stand up, John. I want everybody to know you. Yeah, he is brilliant, and he lives nearby. So, homosexual and heterosexual experience. Well, my goodness, how about this? The Kinsey scale, he said that all sexuality is, what's the big word today? Fluid. Fluid. He's the first one who discovered that all sexuality is fluid. Well, he was fluid. From 10 to 37% of males have had homosexual experiences to orgasm, he said. Okay, during their lifetime. We get a 0 if we're exclusively heterosexual. This is his scale. And you get a 6 if you are exclusively homosexual. Do you think maybe that there's a little bias there? Yeah, in the research? Okay. Now, it's amazing. He did 84% of his people were gathered. He did questionnaires, he said. Well, he threw away 75%. Anyway, but he did most of that during World War II. How many of you guys were alive during World War II, like me, right? Not that many, but that's okay. You can remember. So you can read about it. So during World War II, nobody was allowed to talk to Kinsey. Nobody was allowed to give their personal experiences. Absolutely nobody. Nobody who was in the war effort, nobody who was working in the industry, no servicemen. He didn't have any of them in his so-called normal gathering of, just your regular G.I. Joe. So 84% of his research was done, of his so-called research, was done during World War II, with whom he was having sex and so forth. Also, I mean, his students, he had sex with his students, he had sex with the people he was interviewing. Does that sound like balanced research to you? Huh? Let's see, respond. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, here, I said that he was making pornography during World War II while all the guys were over there getting themselves killed, and the women too, yeah. That's in his attic, which they want to make Indiana wants to make it a, Mary. Thank you. Wants to make it part of the National Register, yeah? thank you. And he was doing porn up there with his secretaries, with the faculty, with his friends, you know. But he also made porn in the soundproof laboratory at Indiana University, which became part of, at the Kinseyan Institute at Indiana University. Does that sound like a balanced guy? All right, this is late 30s, 40s, right? This was all illegal, people. All of it, every bit of it. So where are your big, famous, intelligent scientists who could figure out what I could figure out? I mean, come on, I'm not, you know. Okay, so he slanders our males. 1,400 of the people that he interviewed that were males, he said, were sex offenders. But he calls them normal, regular G.I. Joes. Excuse me? Okay. He said that 50% of our males were engaged in adultery, 95, anyway, all that kind of stuff. And of course, 10 to 37% were homosexual at different points in time. Why? Because we are so fluid. And this becomes, you'll see, and ask Mary all about it later, completely part of our legal system. I have most of that identified in this book and in others. He slandered our women. He said, he interviewed, oh, I love this. He said, nobody even noticed. He said he interviewed 4,441 women, and there was never any rape. Okay? What happened to the Me Too movement, right? Never. Well, the whole issue was that there were no consequences to sex. No consequences. There was no rape. There was no incest. Oh, yeah, we have 0% of rape, 1% VD. He's reporting 1% VD. Do you understand how we got to where we are? Don't worry about the sexual activities you engage in. You're doing this. This is the most natural thing. Your parents, well, now your great-grandparents or whatever, you know, have been hypocrites. They've been doing this all along. And there have been no consequences, no venereal disease, no illegitimate pregnancies, none of that. You don't have to worry about that, okay? He said that 25% of our wives had abortions. Are you kidding? This is in 1948, 20%, and this is all illegal. And contraception was not available unless you were married, right? So where were all the babies? Where was all the abortion? Where were all the illegitimate children? What else? Oh, yeah, right, stuff like that. And, okay, he slandered black women and black men. He said, he slandered the black community. He said, he wasn't going to report on the black community because they were really kind of promiscuous. He gave a very high rate of sexual activity amongst black women when the black community, the black magazines at the time wrote and said, these numbers are not reflecting what's going on, okay? So you had an attack on the black community, which was part of his effort. Okay, slandered the children. This is the worst. I mean, I think it's the worst. Okay, he said that since children are sexual from birth, right, we were dealing with five tables. They're all in my book. Anyway, yeah, so 5 tables, but you can see it up there, right? This is table 34. What do you see there? A 5-month-old baby. Okay, right? You can all see it? He reported this in his book. When I turned to that page, this was page 181 or 180, I said, wait a minute. A 5-month-old baby has 3 orgasms? All right? You're timing this baby's, quote, orgasms? This is the father of the sexual revolution. This is the man who changed everybody's lives globally. Now, and a 4-year-old baby has 26 orgasms in 24 hours, John. Is that a legitimate experiment? It's a round-the-clock experiment, is it not? That's what he was doing to give you the information that we live by today, saying that our sexuality is fluid. Yeah. So he timed it. It's all in the book. It's all documented. And I said, what is he calling an orgasm? What is he call? He wouldn't say what an orgasm is. Well, rigid throbs, 23. He divided them into 6 categories. The boys, all under 12. Sadism and hysteria, yeah. Fighting their partner, the man who's raping them, which he said there's no rape anyway, so don't worry about it. Twitching, spasms, 48%. That's the basis of human sexuality education. And I every day now, I get my Google search thing. Kinsey's coming up all the time, all the time. Why? Because the transgender movement cites Kinsey as the man who gave them and so does NAMBLA. So the new sex education, there's the forced viewing of animal sex scenes. Here, do you see Kinsey's face? I swear, is that demonic? Yeah. So he's got these children at Indiana University, and he's showing them a porcupine sex, which was really violent, you know? And the children are being traumatized, as they are right now, as we sit here, in your schools. In your schools. They are being traumatized, yeah? Oh, now, if this works, it's supposed to play. I press the button now?
Dr. Reisman refused to go on Donahue unless he would agree to show Kinsey's tables, where the child sex abuse data is presented. Despite knowing about these tables, Donahue repeatedly insisted that no proof existed of child abuse in Kinsey's research. Nevertheless, he did show the data to his audience.
Well, we're going to show.
There.
Now,
Now,
what is the point?
You
What is
tell
your
me
point?
what is the point. 5 months old. What is it? I can hardly read it. What's next to that? Number of orgasms. Oh, number of orgasms too. Go down to the 4-year-old. You see the 4-year-old there?
17, yeah.
There, bottom one.
Yes.
4-year-old, 26 orgasms in 24 hours. Tell me, Phil. Tell me, Phil. Does a baby sleep? Tell me, Phil. Tell me, Phil. Does a baby sleep? Tell me if this is scientific. A baby sleeps for 8 hours?
And
You tell me how you get 26 orgasms for 24 hours.
We've got to be able to get a word in edgewise.
Just a minute, just a minute.
Sounds like a guest for the Donahue show.
And you know what Gebhardt said to me? You know what Dr. Gebhardt
What'd he say?
said? He wrote me a letter, which I wish you had up there too, in which he said that oral and manual techniques were used on the children. Now, Phil, I'm going to say that once more. I'm going to say that once more. And if I'm wrong, let them sue me. He said oral and manual techniques were used on those children.
Yeah. That was in 1990, folks. That should have been part of every New York Times front page. Front page. And who learned from Kinsey? A virgin. His name was Hugh Hefner. He was a virgin in college, like most guys were in those days. I even remember. And he read Kinsey, and he said, oh my gosh, my parents have been lying to me all my life. And I'm quoting Hefner, I will be Kinsey's what? Pamphleteer. Yes. And there came Playboy, and that started the pornography revolution, right? So from Playboy comes Penthouse, from Penthouse, Hustler, and until today, the internet of everywhere. So he slandered the greatest generation, public morality, the church. He did all these cartoons about religious, people. And I warned, well, okay, we don't have any kids in here. But so you call that being molested? This is from Playboy. This little girl says, Uncle William, I'm here with him. We're playing Truth or Consequences. And she's in bed with so at the time, nobody realized that they were being groomed. Grandpa, they thought they were supposed to be seeing just girly magazines, but they weren't. They were being groomed to the next generation and the next generation. Jodie Foster's 14 years old. This is Playboy, mature beyond her years, Playboy says. Brooke Shields is 10 years old here. as in Pretty Baby. 1978, the Playboy's biggest year, 17 images of kids per magazine in 1971. Groomed. Grooming the grandfathers who groomed the children. I mean, who groomed the fathers, who groomed the children. The big news is there's more direct eroticism in a small child's body than most adults are willing to acknowledge. Playboy, kids stuff, 1978. NAMBLA. NAMBLA, you know, the North American Band Boy Love Association, everybody? Okay, well, it's a pedophile group. The current hysteria over sex offenders can affect the ability of children to work out sexual adjustments some years later. They're quoting who? Kinsey. That goes back to the people I met who were the Academic Pedophile Union. I could tell you about that someday. So I did a I worked for the Department of Justice. I had a grant, a huge grant in those years, to study images of children, crime, and violence in Playboy, Penthouse, and Hustler. And that's a long story. And this is, you know, Dr. Falwell, right? That's the father. And he interviewed me on his program. He also saved my research, please. You have to know that. I could tell you a lot about that. But anyway, and Dr. Falwell is looking at a document coming out of the Department of Justice that I worked for, Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. I did the research on under them. I did it. And this is, they were going to censor it. They were going to sue me. They were going to put me in jail. Please advise all staff the report should not be duplicated or sent through the mails. This was being read by Dr. Falwell on the interview. Why? Because all of my research finding the children in crime and violence in Playboy, Penthouse, and Hustler, which I said was going to precipitate mass child sex abuse over the years, had to be censored, had to be cut out of your information, all right? Persons under 7 can share full responsibility for sexual behavior. That's 1950, the Group for the Advancement of Psychiatry. Manfred, how many remember Guttmacher? Okay, this is his twin brother. Yeah. Kinsey's data were the points by which we steered. Yeah? Group for the Advancement of Psychiatry. You'll see this in the APA's decision to decriminalize, legalize, normalize all homosexuality. Research on human sexuality can be divided into the pre-Kinsey and the post-Kinsey years. There was no field of human sexuality education. There was no field of human sexuality pre-Kinsey. We had two forms of law. The biblical law, which is based on common law as well, you know, and the laws were based on that. And then you have to supplant, to get any changes, you supplant that law with precedent, scientific precedent. What was the scientific precedent we supplanted the laws with? You bet. So, pre-post-Kinsey, anything legal can be taught and urged in schools, K through 12. Obscenity, there is an, see at the top, well, yeah, okay. Rape, rape got in those years, death in 18 states and life in 22. So what do you think, where was the Me Too movement? They wouldn't have had any problems, right? Right? That's what was being, that was the old law. And obscenity, which is illegal, is legal. Mary will tell you more about that. In all but 4 states in the Union, if you're teaching it as education, K through 12 and K through PhD and so forth. Do you understand that? Is that clear? Obscenity is legal for children in schools. That's why you have the garbage that we have right now in our schools, okay? Anyway, there's lots more. Even at the age of 4 or 5, her seductiveness may overwhelm the adult into committing the offense. 1962, Vanderbilt what? Law Review. Now, we have hundreds of these kinds of law reviews. I could show them all to you now, but, you know, I suppose it would take us another 10 hours. All right. Child molestation? Well, that's a relatively minor crime. It's obvious even to the most prudish neo-Puritan, I suppose Puritans, that kind of is all of us. Who said that? 1969, the Georgia Law Review. So we have hundreds of those in the book. Current condition, are there not, I love this, are there not charms by which the property of youth and maidhood may not be abused? Have you not heard of such a thing, Rodrigo? Othello. It's not old. There.
Hello, I'm Dr. Alfred Kinsey from Indiana University, and I'm making a study of sex behavior. What's your most common position?
There's more than one?
I've learned that the gap between what we assume people do sexually and what they actually do is enormous.
How young were you when you first experienced hugging?
Necking.
Petting?
What did you dream about?
What are we just lab rats? Is this just another part of the project?
Stop using science to justify what you've done.
Forgive me, Meg. I've taken on so many other people's secrets. I don't want any of my own.
Haven't I always been open to whatever you wanted?
Sex is a risky game because if you're not careful, it will cut you wide open.
You saved my life, sir.
Hero, Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson is a hero. After he did this film, he did 2 films where he was the hero in trafficking scenes, right? Yeah. Trafficking films, right? He's the hero. And he saved somebody's life. That's the propaganda that they've been pushing for Kinsey. Kinsey's important to them. Did you ever see a feature film on Darwin? Anybody? Hello? No. This was a Fox feature film, and it's been on A&E, a whole bunch of biographies too. Kinsey is important to the whole movement, and that's why he should be important to us. There are no authorities, said somebody. Believe me, in this field, we're not experts. Who would have said that? Anybody ever heard of Mary Calderon? Anybody? Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so pornography has become normal to show people in order to get over their inhibitions, in order to serve your clientele. No, we're not experts, okay? That was Mary Calderon. And yet, of course, they were producing material. How to win the battle for sex education in the schools. Now, we could spend a lot of time talking. I did for the John Jay report, for the, oh God, I remember. But anyway, so I did an analysis of the John Jay report for Mary, who was it? Ave Maria Law School, thank you. For Ave Maria Law School, and that's going to be available, widely available soon in a book, along with Father Sullins. 1950s, Father Fitzgerald created the Retreat for Depressed, Alcoholic Catholic priests, but the bishops were sending pedo priests who then joined with the sexologists and local hospitals to offer the first psychosexual treatment center. And this picture, the important thing was to capture the Catholic Church. That was important to Kinsey. This is Playboy with Father O'Connor over there. I was reading Goodbye Good Men. I said, they're showing pornography. Where did they get the pornography? Kinsey trained sexologists. They use porn, the sexual attitude restructuring, which is called SAR, in some seminaries for formation, 1968. And Dr. Money and Berlin are the mental health professionals most successful in treating paraphilic disorders in the past 15 years, that's since 1970, at their Johns Hopkins Clinic. They are all, are all deviants that were in charge of the problem of sex offenses by priests, sent to St. Luke's Institute. Father, Peterson, the founder, dies of AIDS. This is all round circle. That all comes back to Kinsey and Pomeroy. And we heard from Ryan about the sex therapy. Well, the GAO report said sex offender treatment facilities, federal health institution studies covering the past half a century of treatment modalities finds no psychotherapy stops sexual predation. No psychotherapy. But of course the the bishops and so forth were told, that money and Berlin could cure everything. 500 sex therapy programs covering 50 years. The 1986 Pornography Commission findings confirm the same thing, and thus my work in 1986, my report, called for a moratorium on all forms of pornography, and I'm saying that absolutely should be implemented. Yeah, these are the leaders. These are the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality uses the FUC-K-orama, the SAR, training teachers, priests, doctors, law enforcement. I have the book without the covers. Yeah, these are their faculty, their staff, their teachers. They sold child pornography to Hustler magazine. Those are the educators who educate the world globally. Do you know what you just saw? Everybody, do you know what you just saw? Let me hear you. Yes, but they are the educators. They are the sexologists who are educating the world globally about about human sexuality. That's who's doing it. And here you can get a 6-unit credit from a pedophile organization in social work. You can get 6-unit credit, okay? So this is going on everywhere for social work, and it's probably also for, psychology and so forth. This obscenity exceptions, these two figures here, that's how I got started at Case Western Reserve University. My daughter brought home this pamphlet. You've changed the combination, put out by Planned Parenthood in 1974. It says if you want a virgin to marry, buy one. This is 1974. If you want a virgin to marry, buy one. There are girls who have freely chosen that business. Marriage is the price you'll pay, and you'll get the virgin very temporarily. That was the end of this pamphlet. Okay, and we have am I running out of time? Am I running out of time? How many? Oh, well. Okay, that's all right. That's okay. Yeah. So, the whole notion of children being able to make these decisions is so fraudulent. We all know by now that we knew it before, but now the science has finally figured it out, that children are not cognitively capable of making cognitive decisions about anything, really, unless they're directed by their parents and so on. So that informed consent from children is absolutely an impossibility, a legal impossibility, as well, of course, an emotional impossibility. You understand, the human brain does not mature. Here, it's beautiful by, thank you, Mary. Dr. Geed of the Institute for Advanced, National Institute of Health. You see not until the lavender color achieves, does the human brain have cognitive capacity, thorough cognitive capacity? Is it mature? So through elementary school, middle school, high school, you can't give them sex material. you're traumatizing children by giving them sexual material in these cases. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, there we go. Had the clever idea to establish an amazing new silk industry in the United States. So they brought in gypsy moths, and they anticipated that the male gypsy moth would mate with the female gypsy moth and help to create this silk industry. But instead, the gypsy moths busied themselves eating all of our trees. They were going after the oak trees, and they went after the maple trees, and all the leaves were just delicious for them. So instead of creating a silk industry, they were busy consuming and having a good time. We were in a pretty disastrous situation in the United States. The scientists engaged in all kinds of research to try and figure out how to get rid of the gypsy moths. We gave up on the silk industry. They created various insecticides to spray to get rid of the moths, but that didn't do the job. Finally, somebody came up with a very creative erotic concept, and that was to have synthetic but intense smells of the female moth put into little pellets. The male gypsy moth would seek after the smell of the female gypsy moth. It's mating time. The females are all fluttering around saying, "Choose me, choose me." And the male gypsy moths go into the area to mate, but the pellets that have that extensive smell of the female cause the male gypsy moths to float all around looking for their perfect mate. She's all over the place, but he's not finding her. Eventually, they couldn't mate, they died, because that's what he's looking for, is that smell that never equals what she's got. She has a reduced smell, a real smell, a natural smell for a gypsy moth, and he is now looking for that synthetic smell that has been created by the scientists. In essence, that's exactly what's been happening with pornography. Thank you, but you know, I thought what was really interesting is the response to this little clip. We had, I don't know, I think a couple thousand, you know, but the guys, most of them were from men and boys, and their response was, she's doing the same thing to me. That males are being, they look to, you know, super studs kind of thing, you know. So he has been, and their response also was, these women are like, the average woman is, he says, is kind of like, you know, I'm trying to use proper language, you know, ladies of the night. They're willing to have sex with anybody. So why should I commit myself? So there's a movement of guys also from away from relationships to women. Now, we went through this. I wish I could do this one at a time. But anyway, in 1973, that was the first time we found in the press, New York Times Index, a crime cluster that could be identified as pornography. 1973, all right? 1975, child pornography started to show up as a cluster. All right, as a thematic cluster. 1977, incest, child abuse. Do you see the change? Do you see the change? In 1980, lust, murder. Who had ever heard of that? Okay, in 1982, child sex rings showed up. In 1984, serial, this was all in my research that I was doing for the Department of Justice, which they wouldn't let out. In 1984, serial murder was a cluster. In 1986, autoerotic asphyxia started showing up. That's where you're killing somebody, but it's okay. They agree. In 1988, ritualistic killing, and on and on and on. That's where we are now, okay? So the changes in the criminal behavior of our people, we've had a massive change in character. We are not the same characters that we once were under the Judeo-Christian belief system. And here are our professors and staff regularly arrested for trading in child porn, child rape. There's the head of my, my university where I did my research, American University, Richard Berenson. He was picked up for various sexual picadillos. And the guy who created, Ben Levin, who created the entire field of sex education in Canada, was picked up for having sex with kids. I mean, these are all just, they come into my Google search regularly. 10% of the students are targets of educator sexual misconduct, and note, yes, by females. There is a substantial percentage of the children who are being abused by women. Massive change in the culture, massive change in the character. You cannot have the one without the other. We had 5,200 people who were involved in downloading child pornography at the Pentagon. Most of it was never investigated. No, wait, oops. Oh, that was supposed to make, I was supposed to have claps. Clapping. Now, I wanted to show that that's what everybody clapped for, right? The ultimate slander, infanticide. Infanticide. We are now killing children when they're born. When they're born. We are changed. And who changed us? Oh, and I don't even go into the whole, okay, Rockefeller involvement. The sex industrial complex, major article I did. The big sexology has always supported big pornography supported big sexology, and who's now making the fortune on sex change, on hormone replacement, on Viagra, on every kind of vaccinating your children for HPV, for syphilis, now it's not syphilis yet, coming down the pike. You know, who's doing it? You bet. There is a fortune in that. And of course for the doctors, not for John, of course, not for John. He's not going to make any money on it because he's trying to fight it. Yeah? So here's the future. For we will stand before the judgment seat of God. So then, each of us will give an account of himself to God. Romans 14. It takes 2.5%. It took 2.5% of homosexuals and their colleagues to change the nation. Diffusion of innovation. This is a standard piece of work done by Robert Kotler. It's in all the marketing management, books. You don't see it here, but you can. We have handouts. Oh, we didn't hand them out. Oh dear, we have handouts right here of this flow chart which I did. Education and law lead the way. They retrain children, teachers, priests, lawyers, prosecutors, judges. This information belongs in every bloody legal case we have. But to get it in there, yeah, when I was in Croatia, we won. In 2013, they completely disbanded the Constitutional Court, which is like our Supreme Court, completely disbanded sex education because I was allowed to show all of this material in Parliament, yeah? And they completely cut, why? Because the man who was going to be teaching, who was going to be changing Croatian sex education had been trained where? Kinseyan Institute, yeah. And in Jamaica, the data win. It was a buggery case, major case. Okay, we won, the data won in South Africa in 2014 on pornography, and even in the Netherlands in 1994, we won by presenting the facts, the data, the pictures, we had all that stuff, and we sent it to the Netherlands. No clapping, you're using my time. Playboy I said it was a Christian TV station, I said, Playboy is this was in 1994, Playboy is the major child pornographer in the United States, in the United States, actually globally, because they were global. The child, and incest. And we won on that basis. And I said, if you could win, and we still can, if you could win in the Netherlands on Playboy, being a child pornographer, you could win anywhere. Yeah? We still could. So, in order to try to end child trafficking, child rape, abortion, people have to become knowledgeable. Read the books. I want to see every one of you. I don't have enough for all of you, you know. So read our books. I mean, the one I have, and then go to, we'll do that. Investigate the Kinseyan Institute for crimes, mass crimes against children. If we could do that in the legislature, which we tried to do and we almost got it, you can get this, Stop the Kinseyan Institute, sign up on that thing, flood it, so people start to learn. The Kinsey Reporter, okay, what's that? It's a global survey. Now, what they do on that thing is they're suborning sex crimes, and they're suborning sex crimes as data, which then they display globally all over the world. And people have got to get involved. I love this. This is out of what is it? Indianapolis Star, out of the Indianapolis Star. Even the Indianapolis Star knows the facts, the truth about who this man was. That's the leader, the world leader in human sexuality. Do you wonder that we have a lot of sadomasochism for our children? Do you wonder that we're cutting them up? We're saying it's okay to cut and paste body parts? What? Do you wonder that we're teaching the garbage we are teaching in the classrooms in kindergarten? No, not kindergarten, I think the first grade. Yeah, we'll let them grow up. So please pay attention. There are my books. I recommend Epidemic also. An excellent, child rape in this country, in our country, and the trafficking book there by, these are tools. These are tools. Just as you need hammers and saws and so forth, if you're trying to do something that, you need the tools. The tools are knowing. The tools are knowing. And thank you very much.
Amazing lady. Amazing, amazing lady. There you go. One. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
This book is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. It gives you nightmares, but it needs to be read. It's unbelievable. We've got time for one question. Because we're about out of time. And I'm going to, and I'll take the rest, and I'm going to get Dr. Judith back onto my radio program again, and I'm going to ask her the questions there so you can join me. Sign up for our newsletter, and you'll know when it's going to happen. Go to Bringing America Back to Life. There's a place where you can sign up for the newsletter. Given that society is so brainwashed, how and where do you break through to reach a dead culture?
Look, as far as I'm concerned, at this point, we have got to have lawsuits, prosecution. You have an attorney general. Yeah? Okay. I will be thrilled to work, with the attorney general. When I did my, I forgot to say, so I won an important case against a pedophile in California. What was it? Greaves. No, that was the other one. I won that one too. California was, what's his name? No, another one. Okay, won a very important case in California. Ah, yes. And so there was a letter that I got from the sheriff, and he said, the attorneys generals should have your information in order to prosecute similar cases all over the country, he said. The attorneys general should have this. And so that was, I think, in 20 years ago. And the attorneys generals never got it because this has become highly politicized. It was politicized, as we saw from Dr. Falwell, highly politicized. I was drummed out of the school. Anyway, yeah, so it was pretty bad. And so we have got to reach attorneys generals who are willing and lawyers who are willing, because at this point in time, and of course, you know, you should go down and storm your schools. Yeah, I believe in storming schools. Yeah, but, and protesting and bring your material with you, because everybody, you all know that the answer you get is, oh, you're the only one who has ever what? Brought this up or complained. And you're saying, you've been drinking the Kool-Aid, buddy. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reisman. And what I would also suggest to all of you, after the last presentation by Ryan, people asked me, what can we do? And I'm sending you to Ohio Value Voters booth, because they've started a statewide organization that is actually tracking this stuff. Do you have obscenity in your school, regardless of whether it's a Christian school or a public school or whatever? Do you have it? Go to Ohio Value Voters, join with them, help them to try and find out what's going on in our schools with regards to this disgusting information that's being put out to our children.
Oh, and let me mention, there's a protest in September, Mary? Yeah. 21st, at the Kinseyan Institute, you know, people are organizing.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much again.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay, just before, thank you, Dr. Reisman.